For those of you who are just joining, feel free to answer these Slido questions. Gonna give the old host jobs right now. The code of contact is something that we're going to that is posted at the beginning of the chat here, and basically we're following it. So if there's anyone who violates any of those rules that are in the code of conduct, you will be dealt with swiftly. So don't tempt us. No, so I don't expect it to be a problem, but just wanted to make sure everyone knows, like, we adhere to that very seriously. The chat, we have basically two things. I know this is very confusing. We have the chat portion, which is like for shenanigans, saying hello, all that type of stuff, and then the Q&A part is where you can ask questions for Ady, and then later in the talk, or along the way, however he wants to structure this, we can address those questions as they go. So shenanigans in the chat, real questions in the Q&A. And then we also have, for those of you who are not already maybe made plans for ng-conf this year, I highly suggest that you do that. It is going to be June 12th through the 15th. There's like 2 days of workshops, and then the 14th and 15th is the main the conference, and it's going to be in Salt Lake City, Utah. If you haven't been there, it's probably my favorite conference I go to every year. Super fun. A lot of, it's like feels like a family reunion every time we're there. It's all the people you want to be there, all the people you want to talk to. And for me, it's been really life-changing for my career going to ng-conf, and it's really connected me with people that I would have never been connected with, and I obviously wouldn't be where I am today without those people. So I'm very grateful to the ng-conf people. So go to the website here, check out the workshops, register, sign up as you so you can get those. Make sure you save a seat for those. I'm sure there's limited seats. Bree just posted all the details on there. But yes, it's ng-conf. ng-conf.org. These are the speakers, the times, all the details you need are right there. And there's going to be a workshop. Oh, looky there. Look at that handsome guy. And then also today's, this video is going to be recorded. So it'll be posted here. Probably usually doesn't take that, maybe a week or two. And they'll be posting the recording of this. So you can, we'll be able to share this for those of you who may have missed it or want to go back and maybe Ady said something that was like mind-blowing and you'll forget, and don't worry, because you can come back and watch it again later. So anyways, that's all of the things that I was supposed to say, I think. But I will open the floor to you, Ady, and I'm here if you need anything, and feel free to expand our minds and let us know how we can improve our Angular performance.
Cool. So you are hearing me loud and clear, and I assume that everybody is the same, okay?
Yep,
cool.
We got
just
you.
Cool. And everybody in the chat, just a few people, just give me a 1 thumb, 2 thumbs up, like that everybody's seeing the screen right now. Grab your coffee, grab some tea. Perfect. Cool. All right. So it's very interesting, and thank you, Jordan, for the intro. But thank you for what I like about watching other people teaching about code or teaching about their passion at the end of the day is not only you can learn from what is the actual subject, but the way they carry themselves and the tools that they use. So last month, I believe we had Jordan on the show, and I happened to be the panelist and host him here. And then I saw that he was using Slido. So this is so good that I was like, every single time you start any type of session, you should at least have a feel for who's the audience, what they are expecting, and then what things that they have been exposed to. So I did quick 3 questions, because I feel like if I give you more than 3 questions, then I make you work. And right now I'm the one who's supposed to be doing the work for you. So let's go through those 3 questions real quick, because they're gonna determine how we're gonna go about this session. And the very first thing is how fast are most Angular apps you are working with. And I like that a lot of people are saying decent because once you go into the performance journey, you might be wanting to tweak every single thing. And sometimes if you have something decent, and then we'll see what decent means, you might not need to do a lot of stuff. You might want to be aware of like how to fix stuff, but you don't have to go and just go like, we need to refactor everything today, stuff like that. So I like that a lot of people are saying decent because the Angular framework itself, I mean, the platform has been investing a lot of time into making like, performance is not the number one goal. It's part of it, so it's just like having a pull up, a big pickup truck versus a Ferrari. There are things that like the pickup truck can do, and there are things that the Ferrari can do, and then vice versa. So Angular does a lot of stuff. Performance is one of them, but they have invested a lot in performance. The second thing is, if we look at the next question, type of performance issues, because each of them has a different way of like being approached to or being solved about. So we have load time performance, which I'm not surprised is the most common one that people are going to not only be aware of or are going to talk about, But then there's runtime performance, which is actually inside like how your app, is being responsive, not responsive in the sense like when you click on something or whatever, and then stuff like that, or like if you're having memory leaks and all that kind of stuff. And then people are saying no clue which type it is. Of course, what is performance at the end of the day? So that's some more, and then of course perceived performance. So the thing is, going from one screen to the other, do you have nice transitions? Or like, do you see something right away? Or do you have like, that dread? I mean, all those little things, okay? So, and I'm going to be very aware of the time because we have a very long session today and I want to cover as much as possible. And then one last thing that I wanted to kind of have an awareness around, and I like that somebody saying decent, I mean, Lighthouse score is 75. So what we're going to look at those threshold, what decent means. And can we get it to 90 instead of 75, okay? Or like, we don't have to be at 100. Now, the last one is like, what do you work with? So Angular comes as like being a champion in SPA, single page applications. So that's normal that a lot of people are like, saying 96% of them are saying SPA, but there's an advent of like SSR app, server-side rendering, if you're using Angular Universal. And the Angular team has like, has vowed to spend more time around server-side rendering, and we'll look at why. SSG are like static site generators. So if you are around the Jamstack or all that kind of stuff, and we have some very cool tools that are coming or that are already in place that allows you to do that. But I like that everybody's working on talking about SPAs. I should have maybe added PWAs, but we're not going to cover that at all today. We're going to focus on performance around SPAs because that's the core of Angular. That's like how many people are using it, okay? So I'm going to switch and I'm going to go through this presentation I did at ng-conf. I'm not going to stay on the slide too long this time. I'm just going to like go through so we can have the context set. But then we're going to do what we do best or what we enjoy doing is like going through the code and like playing around. I hope that, that's fine with all of you here. Thumbs up, thumbs down, however you guys feel. At the end of the day, the session is for you. So I'm going to go in present mode. And let's see. Let's present full screen. And of course, that's not you. You should be, we're going to go to the first slide. A trip back in time. So thumbs up, everybody can see the slide. Good? Okay. And let me take this off here because it's throwing me off. Everybody can see the slide. All right, so if you have never seen these guys, they are called the pyramids and they are in Egypt. What does Egypt have to do with performance in general? I'm an Egypt freak. You know, I like ancient civilization, and I think by far the Egyptian one is the my most favorite one. Maybe that's because that was my dad's favorites. And then the Romans come, and then after that the Aztec and stuff like that. But Egypt is my number one. So and okay, I have to click here. Anybody who has not been at ng-conf, and this is why you should not miss ng-conf. Have you ever seen this, and do you know what it is? If anybody knows, I give you like 10 seconds, and don't cheat. You know, tell me what this thing is. 5, 4, 3, 2. Stairs like I like that one. Stairs that lead to nowhere. Very good one, Kristen. We have some humor today. So this is called a nilometer. So the nilometer is in relation with the River Nile, which is the most important, like, you know, thing, like if you are around in Egypt, because like around the River Nile, that's really what allowed like Egypt to have been like a very strong civilization for more than 3,000 years. Okay. And what is a nilometer? I call it a slick old school engineering, because what it does, it actually measures the Nile. So the nilometer is a structure with a series of steps leading down to the river, Kristen, not to nowhere, leading down to the river where observers will measure the water level, because the water level was very important. Okay. So the water level, why? Because this allowed ancient Egyptians to monitor the annual flooding of the Nile and predict when it would happen. And that allowed them to know if they needed to levy taxes on people, how much grain will be stored for the coming year. And that realized that the fluctuation determined basically like, you know, how much crop they were going to have or not. And that was the 4 seasons that they had around. And that's why if you know Angular ng-conf, which I'm the creator of, that's why we go through those seasons like the Egyptian naming convention that we follow here. Okay? But we are not talking about Egypt 2023 AD. We are going to be talking today about B.L.A.Z.I.N.G, the core principles of fast Angular application. And if you look at it closely, you see that B.L.A.Z.I.N.G is an acronym here. So B for something, L for something, A for something, Z, and so forth and so on. So the people who have been following and who have been at ng-conf, anytime I ask a question around these things, please leave the other people alone. Give them like, you know, a chance to say something or like at least to write something. And, you know, and do not cheat. There you go. So B in terms of performance will stand for what? A lot of people first guess would be bundle size. And you might be correct. I mean, bundle size is one of the most important, if not the most important part of load time performance. But we have to look at it from another perspective, from a budget perspective. Because depending of where you are, what region you are, and most important, what your users are like, how they accessing your website. Are they going to be like, you know, in the metro in France or in London, or are they going to be somewhere like, you know, in Jakarta? Or, and I mean, it depends. So the budget, how much like, you know, you want to kind of have a budget around your JavaScript. Basically, that's JavaScript is going to be the biggest offender. Then CSS, you know, everything that can be like blocking the thread, that's where you're going to be looking at. So B is going to be for budget. And budget, basically, you're going to be you're going to be thrown into a lot of acronyms around performance. And all of these things, basically, the budget or the bundle is going to affect most of these things. So if you have never seen these acronyms, you're going to see them around like what is called the Web Core Vitals, which is a set of metrics that were put together by Google to analyze page performance. And some of them are more important than others. But you're going to see time to first byte, FCP, which is your first contentful paint, LCP, which is going to be your largest contentful paint, and so forth and so on. Okay? Then you're going to see these three right now are going to be called the core web vitals. And when we're talking about decent and bad and fast. Every time you have something in the green, it's fast, according to Google. Anything that is in the orange is decent, and anything that is in the red is very poor. Okay? So largest contentful page, and usually that's going to be your image or like, whatever is going to, sometimes it can be text, but text is it's not very heavy. It depends on how much though you have it and stuff like that. But usually it's going to be that image or that video file that you put in there as the first thing that the people are. And then Google tells you like between 2.5 seconds to 4, it needs improvement. But anything like 2.5 and down, it's good. It's considered good. First input delay, that's the interactivity. And then cumulative layout shifts. So when the page gets painted the first time, and then all of a sudden there's some image where you did not put the width and the height, and then it kind of like shifts that layout. That's what they're talking about. Okay, so the less of that, the better. So these are called the core web vitals. So if you have to, and then this is how, for example, some of the performance tooling will show you the different things, and usually all of them like have like a very nice color code, green, yellow, and red, which happens to be Senegal's, my country, like, flag. It's just missing a star in there. So we'll take care of that at some point. Now, you have like the Lighthouse scoring calculator that allows you here to play around with. And you can see the website here, web desk for performance scoring. You can go and play around with this, I'm not going to cover it today, but that's one of the other tools that you can use. I'm just going to make you aware of this for now. And we're going to go through that. But as a team, or even as a single developer, it's good to have like a performance budget, So what is a performance budget? Just like if you were making a certain amount of money, you should have a budget about like your expenses, So are you going to go and get cable today, or are you going to go buy the last like, Jordans? I don't think like whatever my budget is, like, that's a luxury right there. But then when we're talking about performance, you should have a good budget. So let's say that my current goal for my first contentful paint is 3 seconds, time to interactive 7 seconds, and so forth and so on. I want to keep my CSS size under, at least my active CSS size, under like 50 KB or less. My JavaScript size, let's say 200 KB. And then my total image size, not like, and we'll see, you don't want to be loading 2 megabytes of data, like, right away. But let's say this is my budget. And then I can now, as I have a goal, I can measure against that goal. And then the one that pass, they get a green check mark. And the one that like, don't pass, get a red one. But then now, every single time I have a build, you can add this as a script. Every time I have a build, I can see how am I doing with my threshold. But it's good to have like a performance budget. If not, you are just like doing it blindly and just waiting until it's too late, to try to fix this type of stuff, So now the second part of the core principle is lazy loading. So lazy loading, at the end of the day, the principle is only show the strict necessary that enhances the user experience. So we have a movie website that we're going to be using as a demo. I'll have like the landing page, but I don't have to load every single other part of my app if the user might not even go there. So what I will do is that I will eagerly load whatever, and that's the vocabulary there. I will eagerly load whatever is needed for the user and whatever is enhancing the user's experience. So that's the underline there. Whatever you feel like is going to enhance the user experience, like get it on the page. And whatever they might go to later, you can just like lazy load that part of your application. And now with feature modules or even like with standalone components, you can have like lazy loaded component. And like with your routing, you can decide when they come, or sometimes you can even dynamically load your component. But lazy loading allows you to do that. But that's just not components. Even images, iframes, videos, all those little things too can be lazy loaded because Angular has the intersection observer. Basically, it looks at like what is in the viewport, and then knows like what things can be delayed. So it already does that. If you have a lot of like items, if you're doing long scrolling, which I hate personally, you can look at the CDK and they do have like I don't know they have a scroll view module or something like that that allows you to do some very cool stuff. So when we're talking about lazy load, it doesn't really just like stop at component lazy loading. Yeah, CDK virtual scroll. Thank you, Chris. So that's a very cool one, but it doesn't just stop at components and modules. It can be images. It can be like even like your view. Yeah. So there's some very cool stuff that are being done like by the framework. And I'm going to say framework and platform when I talk about Angular. So that's lazy loading. Now, how do you lazy load? Here now we do have with the new like standalone component. This is how you would go about basically. So this route, if we go into category collection, basically, no, that's the second one. So if we go into page type ID, it will import the app page component and then lazily load it. Okay, so remember that. So basically, this is the most basic way. Before we were doing it with modules, now we can do it with components. And if you're doing this, it has to be a standalone component. Okay, you can still do it with modules. Okay, so the first route basically is not lazy loaded. You want to eagerly make sure, Kristen, that your first route is not lazy loaded. But that still means that you still want to show only what's needed on that first route. Depending though on your project, it might not be possible. You might have a lot of images at first, but you can delay, you can play around, and I'll show you how. So, and then here I was talking about images, and you see that here we do have SRC and everything like that, but I have like loading here. And this is LCP is a rule that I created. So if it is the first, usually if it is the first image, I will not wanna lazy load it. I wanna be able to have it eagerly loaded. And on top of it, I'm using the fetch priority, which is saying like to the browser. When you are fetching these resources, make sure that you put a lot of priority on this one because that's going to be one of the first images to show. And this is LCP. You can even target more than the first image. You can target the first 4 images if you wanted to. But that is something that I kind of built real quick. It's just a quick like Boolean there. I'll show you how in the code. And of course, that's those 2 things in there. But before 14.2, version 14.2, this is probably how we manually had to do it. After 14.2, and let me go back, after 14.2, the Angular, and I'll show you in the code in a little bit, the Angular team has introduced the ng-src directive, which is going to be doing this kind of things for you, okay? So depending why I want to put it here, because in your actual jobs, not everybody has the luxury to just go to 15 when it's out or 14.2. So I want to show like a version that is recent enough, but not too old, okay? Now, so B was for budget or bundle size, budget and bundle size, L for lazy loading, and A, I call it the Angular checklist. So the Angular checklist is usually things that are going to affect your runtime performance, So the Angular checklists are going to be things like, let's look at if I have, things like this. Are you doing like the proper bundling? Are you doing minification and like that code elimination? Are you using pure pipes? What about service worker? And like, for example, just the beautiful transfer state service, I believe that allows you, if you're doing some SSR, coalescing. So coalescing, I found out like earlier, and you remember back in JavaScript when we will have event propagation, and then we will want the event to be only in the component or in the item that where the event was fired, and not like have it like bubble all the way up to the top, and it will say event stop propagation. Coalescing has like a little of that. Basically, if you have a button in the child component and you don't want that to reverberate in the parent component, you can use coalescing, and then it will just register one like change detection. So that's a very cool thing. Caching and all that kind of stuff. Track by when you're using ng-conf. So each of this could be a little session of their own. So I just want you to think about them right now and get to that vocabulary and then start looking at them. And I think there's an official list. I'll put it in the resources. And we share it, because I think the most official and up-to-date one was one that was done by Minko Gachev. Or Genchef. Ah man, I'm butchering his name. I'm sure he's gonna kill me. But anyways, he's a nice guy. So the next thing, somebody was just asking, is change detection strategy in this list? Change detection strategy is the monster of its own. And that's just fitting that we're gonna talk about zone. So zone or no zone. So zone is basically where Angular is going to do what we call like a monkey patch of all the events that are happening and triggering like basically once change detection is triggered. And what zone does basically, it's going to traverse your Angular component tree from top to bottom and then from bottom to top, to see if anything has changed. To me, zone is the like little annoying kid when you have a long drive and he's always like, or she's always like, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? And then in this case, that would be, has something changed? Has something changed? Has something changed? And sometimes even forcing like rendering when you don't need rendering. Okay, so that's where change detection is like mainly going to happen. And that's why you have zone that is going to like, as soon as a component is marked dirty because something happened, like let's say a set timeout event, a button event, a scroll event, all of those things that trigger a possible change, there's a change detection cycle that goes. And then in that change detection cycle, zone is traversing the tree and seeing like, allows Angular to traverse the tree. But think about it. If you have a lot of components, they are going up and down and sometimes re-rendering something that did not get, needs to be rendered. That's why we advise on things like that to use on push, for example, to allow for less re-rendering. That's where zone comes in. So Rivera, I hope that answers your question. But there are some operations that you don't need to run inside the zone. And Angular even gives you like, a way to opt out for some of this operation. You can opt out completely out of zone, but if you don't know what you're doing yet, don't even like bother doing that. There are like, with signals that is coming and with a library like RxLet that I believe Michael Latke and Lars Nielsen, Enea Jaholari, those guys, I mean, if I say their name, please follow them. These guys are like, the shiznit, since I cannot swear on an official webinar, but they are the shiznit when it comes to that. So, Michael Latke, who's my mentor in this type of thing. So, but we are still dealing with zone, but Angular allows us to get out of zone when we have an operation that Angular doesn't care about. So always ask yourself this question. Does Angular care about the computation or does it care about the result? So for example, a scrolling event, does Angular care about every single X and Y of that scroll event? Or like a mouse move, does Angular like needs to track every single like, coordinate of that mouse move? Or does it just care about the end of that? If it cares about the end of it, you probably don't need to have it like run inside of zone. And you have like this function that is called like run outside of Angular. So you can like run outside of Angular, and once you get the result, you can put it back into Angular. And you can do sometimes the same thing with web workers, but we'll cover that, in another session. So basically, you can take that computation outside of zone, which doesn't trigger change detention, which doesn't like cause your tree to re-render. Yes, yeah, Kyla, I will make sure that we share those guys' names. They need to be celebrated. They're doing like a great job, just like Jordan and the rest of the community. So yes, we will. So as I was saying, this is here how you can like run outside of Angular and then do the stuff. And after you're done, you can see that we can put it back. And I went too fast on this line here. We can like make sure we put it back inside of zone. Okay. So we talked about zone. So we did B for I hope you guys are following. We did B for like bundle, but most important budget size. L for lazy loading. A for like I even forget my stuff now. I mean A for Angular checklist. Z for zone or no zone, and I for IV. And I love cars. I hate engines. I don't know them. I don't care about them. I just want them to run and to run nice. Okay? Do the same thing with IV. And that's why every single time, I mean, I think at some point the Angular team went on a long break. I mean, I will not call it a long break, but they went on a long period where they spent a lot of time into just updating IV. IV is doing a lot of cool stuff for us. Just let her do her thing. All right? So that's why anytime you have the, you are able to update to a newer version, do it. Because then you're just gonna get like, a lot from it. The Angular team is like, hardworking. And then at the end of the day, sooner or later, she's gonna take over. At the end of the day, it doesn't make sense to not her. I mean, you can be the best mechanic and stuff like that, but the magic that is going to come from like the Angular team and how like they are thinking about compile time, runtime, like like when you have your providers and stuff, how they like orchestrating this whole thing. Let them do that. Let them take care of that part. Okay, and you'll see like how you can tap into that, and that's why most of us right now have a decent Angular application, and we should be grateful for that. So now we looked at IV. N comes next, and the N1 will be for non-blocking operation. And this is the line that got me to fame now. I mean, they're only calling me to do Angular sessions because of this line, but I have to give you a feedback. So let it roll, let it flow, let the good bite grow. Of course, people who have some rap reference will know that it was there. I don't even know the song name, but I was like, let it roll, let it flow, let the good time grow, or something like that. And I turned it into a bite. But really, what you want is that JavaScript is single threaded, okay? And some people can say, well, we have web workers, but still, JavaScript is not Java. It's not like we have a single thread. And in that thread, everything is like, HTML, when you're opening the stuff, we can parallelize stuff. But JavaScript in itself is single threaded. So whatever you want to delay, whatever can wait, whatever is not that important, whatever doesn't have a high priority, you should be able to indicate to the browser, okay, I need this, but I don't need it now. How do you speak the browser that language? How can you tell the browser what you might need, but not now? So here, we will look at a couple things, okay? First, you look at the script here, and I have like two attributes in the script, async and defer. So async would be like not so important, can wait, and defer is chill, no hurry. But what do they do? So the async one is basically saying, do it in an async fashion whenever you can. So it's a low priority whenever you can. But the one thing that the async does is as soon as it starts as soon as it starts loading, it's blocking. So that means like whatever is in that is gonna be like blocking at that moment. Because remember, when it comes to JavaScript, the one thing that we need to remember, it's just not loading like an image or stuff like that. It's loading and interpreting it. It's loading and saying, is there comments there that I need to execute? You see? So JavaScript has like those two facets. It has to load it and it has to interpret it. So async is something that you want to have at some point, but when it comes in, you know, you want it to at least like check, execute it, and then go to the next thing. Defer is almost the same, but defer is never going to be blocking, you know. So defer is something where you're like, you know, I think if I'm correct, your marketing type of scripts, stuff like that, you know. I think async will be your marketing type of script. So you need to kind of where like you have done this nice like, you know, performance update, and your marketing team comes and, hey, we have like this new like thing we need to measure user tracking and stuff like that. I think those you put in async. Defer are more like, you know, your promotional stuff. Like if you have a blog and then all of a sudden there's like a model coming up and stuff like that, you know, those are probably going to be in defer. Okay. Hopefully I'm making myself clear here. And don't forget, guys, go to the Q&A if it's not very clear, and put it there, because I might miss your question in the chat. So now we do have like the style sheet, but look at the way the syntax that we have in the style sheet. If we have it this way, basically you see that there's an unload clause there, which is saying that after it has loaded, change the type of this to all. By default, we hack it and we put it as print, because print is non-blocking, but all is blocking. Okay, so that's a little thing in there. So basically what you want to do is any critical CSS that you need for the page, you can have it in here. So let's say you had two buttons and then those two buttons had their CSS, you will have their CSS as inline CSS here, and then you will defer the rest of the CSS. This is how you gain load time. Okay? So we talked about non-blocking operations. And then the last but not least is what I call the gang of P's. For blazing, so G is the gang of P's. So the gang of P's is like pre-connect, preload, prefetch. And we kind of talked about a little post CSS there. I think post CSS was the original like plugin, and then they incorporated. But pre-connect, preload, and prefetch. So pre-connecting, you know, let's say you are new in town and you're going to the hardest club in town. You've never been there, you know. You have no VIP privilege. They don't know you. They have never seen you. So you're going to have to go through the ranks. You know, everybody who has been waiting I mean, it's been like over 10 years since I've been in a nightclub. But anywhere you go, if the place doesn't know you, they have to check you. They have to kind of who you are and everything like that. But let's say you went there the day before or 2 days before, and you make sure you got acquainted. So when you come back, you are a familiar face. And that's what pre-connect is going to do for you. If you have some URLs, like your API URLs, some of your logo URL or whatever, anything that you have that you know is going to be very important to like your page load, to your page rendering, you know, you can pre-connect to that resource, to the URL. So if you have your CDN URLs, you know, here we're going to be using the movie database API. So that is something that I'm going to be connecting to. So I'm going to add it as a pre-connect. Preload does the same thing that we kind of saw with async and defer. What it does is basically is the low priority, you know, and then but in the loading context, it's going to go like sooner than some of the other resources. So if I know that like ng-conf promo image is going to be there, I'm probably going to preload that image. Prefetch though is something where you are like looking at the possible like destination that's going to be usually on your links. So you're going to go to that next link, the about. I can prefetch that page. I can just do like what I would call maybe a soft pull of that page, and it's a lower priority, like, so how the browser is going to be directing what to load, what not to load. If like, there's a very nice plugin, NGX something that does that for you already. But you can add prefetching too in some cases, and Angular 2 has like a prefetching strategy that you can have. There's a preload strategy. No, there's a preload strategy, but there's a prefetch plugin. I think that's the other way around. There's a preload strategy that allows you to preload some of your stuff in a very low priority way. Okay. So yeah, all of those things that I'm talking about, we'll have it as a link resources. I'll make sure that we share that when we have the video out. So gang of peas, and then here we're gonna look at it basically where, well, we don't need that more anymore, but here we're gonna go to the image TMDB site, and then here we're gonna say basically pre-connect to that. I'm gonna be using Cloudinary as my CDN. I'm gonna say pre-connect to that, okay? So that's the pre-connector right there. And that's the part of the presentation for B.L.A.Z.I.N.G, and like coming back, budget or like a bundle size, because like how much JavaScript and how much CSS you're sending down to the browser is going to be important. Lazy load your assets, lazy load your components, lazy load your modules, but don't over lazy load. Like you have some parts that you need to evenly load, and that's usually like, your default resources, and usually that's why in Angular you'll have a root module and then feature modules, or you have a root component and feature components. And then you can play with the routing, which one comes first, which one comes later. Zone is where basically like, Angulars try to monkey patch all event and see like in your Angular tree if something has changed whenever like the change detection is triggered. And, I will not say go zoneless, but there are going to be times where you can opt out of the zone, and if you ever go totally zoneless, I mean, there's going to be some use case. Make sure that you know exactly what you're doing, because yeah, it might be a hindrance, but most of the time it's a luxury to have that because it's taking care of a lot of good stuff for you. I is for IV. So the only thing that I can say about it is keep on like updating to the next version. And then like trust in the Angular team. These guys and girls there are doing crazy stuff. 16 is like right around the corner. 15 is like, we're not even done with 15. 16 is about to come. So yeah, so keep with those guys. I trust in the Angular team. N is for non-blocking, defer, async, anything that you can do to delay some of this stuff, do it. And G is the gang of P, pre-connect, preload, prefetch. All right. So now you guys tell me real quick, do we go through the code real quick, or do we look at some of the questions we have in the Q&A?
Yeah, we have about 4 questions, Ady.
Okay.
So I don't know if you want to answer some of them. Maybe part of answering them is showing them code. I'm not sure.
Yeah, probably.
But our man Marcus was asking about the relationship between the width and height property and classes that are set, like the width and height for the ng source directive example you showed.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have any insight into that.
Yeah, and we're going to go through it through the code too. But basically, whenever your page is rendering, your images and stuff like that, if you are helping the browser by already telling the browser how big your image is going to be as far as width and height, it doesn't have to calculate that how much it needs to paint. So it's just guessing. if you don't, and then all of a sudden when the image loads, because the image, if you say lazy load and you did not specify how big like that space is, now it has to kind of like do a layout shape. But we do have responsive images and everything that ng-src does and everything, and it will help into making sure that the browser, by the time that it's compiled, it will know how much of a box it needs to put together and be ready for that image to be that image, that iframe or like whatever else that takes like width and height. Hopefully that responds to that one.
Yeah, sure. Craig was asking how do people deal with lazy loading failures, like network connectivity flakiness, loading the module failures, that type of thing.
Lazy loading failure. Okay, so if you have a lazy loading failure, you have like an Angular failure, because at the end of the day, Angular is as a whole would either load all of their modules first, and then depending on your route, it will start like lazy loading the other stuff. So if you're going to have a network problem, you're going to probably have the network problem at the loading phase first, because technically most of the lazy loaded part are not going to be as heavy as your first load in general, because your first load involves all of the stuff. And like Rivera saying, anytime you're trying to load something, at the end of the day, don't forget that it's a promise. A lot of people don't see that like the lazy loading part is a promise at the end of the day. And like Rivera just said, you can hook into the error there. You have a then to load the component. So if you have a then, you have a catch. So you could subscribe to that. But if you're having a loading problem at your lazy loaded components, basically there you have a bigger problem, because it means like even maybe like your entire JavaScript is not going to load in the first place.
Totally. Or your modules are really, really big that you're loading, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple questions around like how you're doing the print style sheet. So I don't know if you have an example of how you're doing that in Angular.
Yes. So Angular kind of does it for you, and I will show it in the code. So let's get back to that in the code. And is there another question? Are you seeing my code right now or not?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, good. Because I'm going to be between here, and to not confuse you guys, so what I'm going to do is basically, okay, since we are in the code, I didn't know if you were seeing my code. I didn't know if I needed to share again. So what we're going to do, let me just take all of this, close all on this side. And here, I just want to stay with main. So I'm going to pin it. And then for now, I'm just going to close everything else. Close all. There you go. What is this thing doing? Sorry, but the Zoom thing is like on top of my screen right now, and I hate it. Hide floating meeting control. There you go. Thank you. All right. So here we have, when you are dealing with standalone components and you want to do modules, you can bypass. You don't need like an app module like at the stuff you can have in the main file. You can use what we call the Bootstrap application, and then this is where I have my routes and everything else. Now, when it comes to the index file, that's where this question that you just asked is going to be relevant. So in the index file, this is, if I take out the comments, in the index file, this is your typical index file in Angular, and then you'll have on the built one, you'll have like your script at the bottom. But here, this way is blocking. It's gonna download. It's gonna download all your styles, before going to the next thing. Okay. But what Angular is gonna do, and I'll show you. I'm gonna just go through the steps right now. What Angular is gonna do, if you ask it to do it for certain version, this is what it's gonna end up doing for you. It's gonna write the Rails style sheet. and then put the reference, put major print, and then on load, it's going to do this. And it's going to calculate by that time all of the CSS that you have for the page, and it will put it in an inline style in here. So that's what it's going to do. So traditionally, we were not able to do this stuff. So should I go ahead and show the project and then go through the steps of, because I don't know how much, we have about 30 minutes left, something like that.
Yeah, it looks like yes, and there was a few other questions. One of them could be answered by, it was clarifying something around coalescence, and another was asking about the performance tool you use other than Lighthouse. They couldn't remember the name of it.
The performance tool that I use other than Lighthouse. Okay, let's just go through the steps. I think we can do that. So coalescing, make sure you remind me that one. So what we're gonna do here, I have prepped like I did not have a chance though. You guys are the first one to kind of really see this. I could not really show this at ng-conf because I ran out of time. But movies and sports have been like very, very monumental in my life. You know, I love movies. I'm a movie junkie, and I love sports. You know, so it's fitting that we're gonna be talking about like an app about a movie and stuff like that. And then the benchmark that I use is I love like this tool called like Astro that is doing, when we talk about SSG and SSR, that is one of the best tools out there. And when I look at, when I inspect an Astro site, and let's say here, I'm gonna, I don't need to worry about progressive web app. I'm just going to analyze the page load. And since this is like there's a mix of server-side rendering, and then there's a mix of like static site generation, we're going to expect to have very, very good performance score. You know, as you can see here, 99 performance, 100 accessibility, and everything like that. And when you're doing like this performance like exercise, instead of always you can just, I saw that this thing is very cool. You can just come here and take the next one. And we're not going to worry about things like, I would probably do accessibility the first time just to have a quick picture. But since I'm going to focus on performance, I'm just going to uncheck all of this. And you see that I'm on mobile. I mean, it's really rare that you're going to have a performance issue on desktop, if at least like you are in a 3G to 4G like country, you know. If you have like good internet speed there. So the standard might be like looking at like mobile in general and have a good sense, because a lot of people are on their phone when they like checking websites and stuff like that. So now when I analyze the page load here, and I'm still on Astro, this is not us, but this is going to be our standard. And looking at the network to show you that there are, this is not an SPA. When I look at the network and I look at the fetch XHR and I refresh, there's almost nothing, because all of those requests are done, you know, server side. Okay. Now we come to ours. It's 80. And one thing, whenever you're doing performance, you don't want to be testing on 4200 because that's your development side. You want to be testing it after like it has compiled and everything, okay? So now we are in production, and I'm using a package called npm HTTP server to run like, you know, my distribution like folder right now. Now, when I go to inspect here, and let's go to network, and I refresh it, you see that I do have a fetch XHR. When I do all, I have all of my JavaScript, and then you see that this is like the build because we have polyfills and then the hash and everything like that, okay? But you see here that my main is 2.1 megabytes. You see, so if I go by size, my main JS is 2.1 megabytes. So we were talking about budget earlier. The next one, my polyfills are at 112 and stuff like that. So you can already guess that this is going to be a very poor performance score. So to depress ourselves, let's go and let's do due diligence first, and then let's analyze the page load, which is going to be horrible. And by the way, this is built the same way. I mean, this is built with Tailwind CSS, and there was a nice template that I found online. We'll share the link, you know, that will allow you to do the same if you go. So now we started at 27. This is horrible, okay? But the cool thing about Lighthouse, and if you're starting like, if you're starting, how can I say it? If you're starting your performance journey, I will start with Lighthouse because it has a lot of like, you know, cool tips from the get-go. So we talked about FCP in the thing. First contentful paint is taking 13 seconds. The time to interactive, the time somebody has to wait, you know, to start like dealing with your website is 14 seconds. I don't know if you have a teenager or a younger person in your life. They're not waiting 14 seconds for your site. Never. Even older people are not going to wait 14 seconds for your site. You know, let alone like, you know, the younger generation. The largest contentful paint is 14 seconds. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a second one, but this time I'm just going to focus. The rest was okay. So I'm not going to worry about that now. I'm just going to like check them off and do a second report this time, you know, but just on performance. And there's no magic. It's still going to be a 27. We did not do anything yet. All right, 26 even. Wow, okay. And what I like about doing it this way is you can always like go to the where you were and then see the evolution. So you were here, 27. Then we went the next at 2, and we at 26. Now, when we're looking at the metrics here, it's asking us, these are the problems. And what I would do, like Shihab Odmani is a Google GDE from Morocco. I saw one of his sessions at Angular ng-conf, and it's basically go from the top to the bottom. Address this first, then go to the next one, go to the next one. So I think we'll have enough time to at least address all the red ones and like start improving the score. So the very first thing that it's asking us is we're not enabling text compression. So, but the thing is, even before the text compression, we are loading 2.3 megabytes of JavaScript from our main file. That is too big, okay? So how do we fix that? Let's go to our code here, and then the very first thing, let's go to our Angular JSON. In our Angular JSON, before we do that, let's go back to the network, and let's go to all, and I want to see, where is it? Okay, this is your HTML, index.html file. So if we look at the response, you see that, look, it's getting the style sheet as a blocking resource. You see, not only does it like get the main style sheet, it's taking like this whole thing here. So it seems like we have like a double hit right here, which is not good. It's not doing this for us yet because we have not told it to do it for us. Okay. I think now it's kind of built in like later versions. So you guys correct me. Please keep me honest here. The Jordans, the Chris and stuff. But what we're going to do, we're going to fix two things. We're going to fix the JavaScript size because we have 2.1 megabytes and stuff like that. We're going to fix that. And then the second thing, we're going to fix the loading with the HTML. So if I name, it's going to be at the top now. That's going to be your index file. We're going to fix both of that. Okay. So now I got back to Angular JSON, and then the very first thing, I'm going to look at the budget. So the budget here, we have an initial budget. The maximum is 1 MB, and the maximum error is 3 MB. You know, so what I want to do here first is I'm going to change this and say I want the maximum to error out. Do you remember when we did our performance budget? We don't want our Angular to be to our JavaScript to be about 200 kilobyte. So let's say we want to error out at 300 kilobyte. And let's just say that we're going to have at least a warning when we at 250 kilobyte. Okay, so that's one thing. Second thing, in order for Angular to help us in optimizing our load, putting like our style, like the one that we need with post CSS and all that kind of stuff, we have to go to the optimize flags that you're going to find. So if you go to the optimize flag, there's usually about, I'm at 14.2 right now. It might be different on your version, but I think at 13, since 13 or like at least since 13, you are able to do this. So build the optimizer, I want it to be true. Okay. And then optimization, there's two ways to do it, but usually you can just do true. You can just do true, or you can open an object and say, I want the script to be optimized. I want the styles to be optimized. Make sure that, yeah. And then I think too, if I'm not mistaken, we can do fonts. Yeah, you can do fonts true, you know. So it will tell that because it depends on where you're at. But really, I don't see why you would want the script to be optimized and the styles and not everything else. So instead of like even figuring out this part, you can just like go ahead and do true. So now you are optimizing the script. You are optimizing the whatever it is. So the next one are these two guys, and you'll do the same thing. So and this is for production. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna do what is it? Build the optimizer here too. I'm gonna do true. Okay, so did I address all of them? Build the optimizer true, optimization true, optimization here, I'm gonna do true. All right. So how does it affect? Look, guys, we go back here and we see that our JS is 290. So we have about 3 megabytes of JS, give or take, okay? And our index is having a blocking resource with the style, all right? So let's take this. Let's open up here. I'm gonna do Control C, Command K. If you're on the Mac, let's just see where we are. PWD, we are inside the disk folder. So I'm gonna go up twice. And let's just remove the disk folder for now. Okay, so it's a directory, so we have to do remove RF disk. Okay, now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do my build script. So here I'm gonna do npx. I have nx in a single Angular stuff. I use nx, but that's not the thing. So I'm gonna do nx build ocine prod. Okay. So it's gonna build it for production now. And this is probably the one time that I'm gonna do like the build this way, because everything else I can like tweak around. I mean, I might do a second build, but look. So here I have an initial total of 352. So since like my budget is over 300 KB, you remember in the Angular JSON what I showed you, the build like will fail because the bundle initial, that's the warning, went over 250, but the budget was 300. But guys, we are at 2.1 megabytes. So right now, it's telling me that, and even before me tweaking and doing other stuff, that I have 352 initial total. That's amazing, just by changing those things like in Angular JSON. And I'm not even done yet, okay? So, like, let's go here, and let's say that where we had our 300 KB, let's put it to 400. Let me say, okay, guys, if you're going over 300, I want to know, because there's ways we can fix this. But now, let me say that the maximum error will be 400 KB. So right away, there's one thing that you can add in your Angular JSON file that will tell you right away, hey, something is wrong. Do you want to look at this a little more? 400 kilobytes of JavaScript is still a lot, but that's better than 3 megabytes of it. Okay. So let's come back. And here, let me clean this up. And let's just go for it. And feel free, keep for the questions coming and everything. I know that we're going to try to wrap it in 10 minutes, so I'm going to go faster. This is one of the most important aspects anyways. And I know that, I just wanted to show it to you live so you know that there's no trick here. Sorry about if it's taking a little time. So now you see we have our initial total, the estimated transfer size, and then you see our lazy loaded route, which is app page component, is gonna be part of the main bundle. All right. So now that we have that, we can go into this folder. MNK, and it's gonna have an OCD in there. So let's go inside of it. And then in here, we're gonna do HTTP server that, okay? Now I wanna use a different port. I'm gonna use 9,000 for the port, and I don't want any caching. So I'm gonna do C1, okay? So now we have 9,000, but you see, we are not using any gzip file. We are not doing anything to make our file smaller. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna come back here and we're gonna go to localhost 9,000. Yeah. So let's inspect this. First, let's go to the network and let's refresh. So when we refresh on the network, the very first thing here, okay, says style CSS. All right, I see what it is. That's me who made that mistake, but I got it. So look, what is it gonna do? Link rel reconnect. Okay, I think I messed up the index file, so I have to go back to the initial one. That's fine. I won't have time to fix this. I was dealing with the index file myself, so which is something that you would not do. But what I want to show is for the JS. Now, this is where we're at, guys. Now, look, main went from 2.1 megabytes to 267 kilobytes. I don't know how much fold it is. It is 1,000 fold almost. Yeah. So we can even believe that we're going to have a better Lighthouse report right here. So let's analyze the page load.
Hey, Ady, we have a question from Monty. He's asking, you're budgeting for prod builds. Do you see any need to do the same thing for dev builds as well? Or dev or staging?
Not really. Yeah, not really. Because I think it's a lot. Yeah, I don't think it really matters at that point, because what is going to really affect, you could do it from that. I will do dev only, not budgeting. I can still use Lighthouse on dev to start understanding what are my first contentful paint and stuff like that, and start targeting those and start like maybe writing a script for those. But when it comes to like the load time, honestly, like doing it on dev doesn't make any sense, because the dev build is going to have the entire Angular platform. Dev doesn't know yet if you're going to use everything or not. So budgeting there doesn't make sense from that perspective. But guys, we went from what, 27 to 58.
Yeah.
Okay. And we went from 14 seconds to like, 4.4. So I have I'm going to go faster now. I'm going to show you something very cool. So let me go to my package JSON. Before even I go into the Angular side, which I probably will not have, this presentation is really like a whole day workshop where we're going to go to load time performance, runtime performance, Angular and everything. So if you really want to see the whole thing, you can, but it's just hard to show everything in a one and a half hour here. But what I can show you real quick, 2:14, so we're good. I wanna compress some of those. I could not find that word. I want to compress some of those files. So I'm gonna go to my package JSON, and I have this two script here where I'm gonna like build with gzip first. I'm gonna build it and I'm gonna compress it with the gzipper algorithm, gzip. And then the second one I'm going to do with Brotli. So you see that the script basically removes our dist, and then does our build, and then use the gzipper to compress and passes the gzip flag, and then it's going to compress everything that has JS, CSS, or HTML. And if what we're compressing is bigger, ends up being bigger than what we had, it will just remove it. There's no point of compressing something and then it becomes bigger. It's funny, antifiles will do that to you. I learned the hard way. Okay, so let's do Control-C here. And let's go to our one cool thing that I saw. If you don't want to remember all of your scripts and have to type them, in here, if you're using VS Code, you have the npm script right here, So let me do Command K in here. All right. And now I'm going to build it with gzip, and I'm just going to press play. All right. So 6 files have been compressed. It has built this, and 6 files have been compressed. Good. So what I want to do, am I still in Cine? Okay, ls. No, cd. Oh, hold on. cd up, cd up, and then cd dist. Okay, Cine. And then when I do ls, I have all of this, and you see that they have gz in here, okay? So now what I'm going to do in my HTTP server, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to say use, is that G? Yeah, use G, and let's just to make sure we don't have any caching issue, let's do 9200. And then we see now that here, it's going to serve gzips files, okay? So I'm going to come back in here. Let's go to 9200. And I think I have only 5 minutes. So there are parts of the Angular side that I'm not going to be able to show you. But, okay, refresh. And then empty cache and hard reload. So we are here. And now I'm going to do a new page load with gzip.
Do you have a Ady, do you have a repo for this for the audience? I know that you still have lots more you want to kind of get to, but I know that some people are going to have to drop off here, but I was just curious if you have a link you could share, anything like that.
I'll make the repo available soon. There are some security. I mean, I have my API tokens in there. I need to clean that up, but we will share it soon. Yeah. So you see that now we went to 73. Okay. So here, when we were at 9,000, we are at 58. We started at 27. We are not at 73 just because now we have gzips our file. And then we have like, the 2.1. So the other thing that I wanted to show you was that we don't have the width and the height added for the image, and we did not put like lazy loading. So if we do that, do I have 2 minutes to show it?
Yeah, if you go super fast.
Yeah, so let me just do like list item component, which is list item component HTML. And here you see that the images, we are like getting them, and then we're not lazy loading them at all, So here, I'm gonna just do lazy. Is that lazy? No, it's load, attribute loading, yeah. So loading, and I promise that's the last thing. Attribute loading. So let's just do loading lazy, and let's do width. Let's give it a width. I know that the width is 360, 342, and let's give it a height of 513. Let's just do this. And that's the last thing we're gonna do. Let's go back to Control C. I just wanna build, but this time I'm gonna build with broadly, so we do 2 birds at once. And that's the last one. So, I mean, we had about 80 people at some point, and to the 58 who are standing still and sitting still, I really appreciate it. You can never control this part. And here, okay, I'm just gonna do the same task, Command K. And if I do ls, so just ls, I just want to make sure. So for some reason, that's funny. You have to go out, come back in for it to see it. cd dist, ocine, and then ls. And now you see that the files extension is broadly. Okay, that's just what I wanted to show. And here, I'm going to do B instead of G. And let's go to 9,300. Just to make sure there's no shenanigans. Now it's serving broadly files. And I put lazy loading on the images. So let's go to 9,300. Okay. Even though I said no cache, I'm gonna just like do this. And let's go analyze page load one more time.
Wow, look at that.
And I'm not even done yet, but I'm done for today.
That's amazing. Wow, that's but that just shows like in just a very, in just a few steps how you can really drastically improve performance just using the tools Angular has already given us. So that's super awesome.
It's amazing. It's amazing. And then once we will go inside the Angular stuff, there are a few things we can tweak in there, and it's just going to go over the top. It's just like, So like I said, I mean, thank you so much, like JP, for sticking around. There's more of this where this came from. Thank you for ng-conf for putting this together, allowing us to be in front of the community. ng-conf is happening like from the 12th to the 14th. I mean, the 12 and the 13 will be like the workshops. There's Lara Newsom who's going to be there. There's Ben Lesh, Brian Love, Mark Ryan. you don't want to miss that. And then we're going to be there. I have a talk of a lot of guys and girls there have some very amazing talks. So come to ng-conf. My name is Ady, and if you want a full length workshop of this, please make sure you find me on Twitter under ADYNGOM. That's where I hang out. I run TechLabs28. That's my shop, techlabs28.com. And on Twitter, I'm just under Ady Ngom, and that's and LinkedIn. So you can find me there. And thank you for ng-conf for doing this, and then looking forward for the next ones coming up. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Ady. And you guys will have to come to ng-conf so you can meet him and ask him some more follow-up questions. If not, make sure you follow him on social media. And thank you guys for attending, and we'll see you next time.